back here on WKYT Now at 5 o'clock.
Former Governor Steve Beshear is responding to Governor Matt Bevin's claims that his administration coerced state employees into donating to Democrats.
Just hours after the governor made those allegations, the man accused of spearheading that scheme pled guilty to bribery charges.
New Yorkers are having a big impact on the presidential race for the first time in decades. I'm Weijia Zhang in New York City with the latest on primary day coming up.
This is WKYT News at 5.
Governor Matt Bevin launching an investigation after he says his office uncovered evidence of wrongdoing in former Governor Steve Beshear's administration.
The governor made the accusations in a news conference this morning. Hours later, former Governor Steve Beshear is firing back. WKYT's Victor Puente is live in Frankfurt with our top story at 5. Victor?
Well, unlike most of his press conferences, Governor Matt Bevin didn't take any questions when he was finished this morning. He did say that as this investigation continues, his office will release as much information as the law allows. When Governor Matt Bevin announced a press conference for earlier today, many of us in the media thought it might have to do with the budget passed last week. We quickly learned we were wrong.
In the first 4 months of my administration, my staff has uncovered evidence that officials in the prior administration have failed to meet these high standards that both the law and the people of Kentucky demand from state government officials.
Bevin claims that under the administration of Governor Steve Beshear, state employees were coerced into contributing money to Democratic campaigns, including the Attorney General, Andy Beshear's. He said the system was led by Personnel Secretary Tim Longmire.
And have explained how they were essentially coerced and that they complied out of fear of loss of their jobs or other retribution. This investigation is preliminary, but we've learned enough to have significant concerns.
He also said Beshear awarded a $3 million no-bid contract on the last day of his term. He said the company awarded that contract used the husband of Beshear's Secretary of the Cabinet as a consultant. He also brought up issues with how the company that was supposed to oversee the state's Medicaid IT system was procured. Steve Beshear denied the accusations in a release, saying, quote, attacking me in an effort to distract the public from his Benefine debacle and his plan to strip away health care from hundreds of thousands of Kentuckians will not work. Today's accusations, which have absolutely no basis in truth, continue this pathetic spectacle. Governor Bevin says the Secretary of the state's Finance and Administration Cabinet, Bill Landrum, will oversee the investigation into these practices. Live in Frankfurt, Victor Puente, WKYT.
Victor, thank you. The Attorney General responded by saying the governor is overstating his authority. He also said the U.S. District Attorney released an affidavit saying his campaign had no knowledge of the contributions. Now, Governor Bevin's accusations come as the man he claims spearheaded the forced contributions from state employees admitted to federal bribery charges.
Tim Longmire entered the plea in federal court in Lexington this afternoon. WKYT's Hillary Thornton was there for that hearing.
The attorney for Tim Longmire said the former head of the state's personnel cabinet entered the guilty plea here inside a federal court today because he simply wanted to take responsibility for his actions, which include more than $200,000 worth of kickbacks. Longmire admitting in court today that he both solicited and accepted kickbacks from a private consultant during his time as Secretary of the state's personnel cabinet, at which time he did oversee the health plan for state employees and admitted today to using that role to persuade Anthem and Humana to hire the consultant he was working with. Inside of the courtroom, United States attorneys outlining the plea agreement with Longmire, in which the former state official claims responsibility for soliciting and accepting more than $212,000 in exchange for assistance in securing multi-million-dollar contracts for that consultant. Prosecutors say a majority of Longmire's kickbacks were received in cash, while about $6,000 worth came in illegal political contributions. While there is not a recommended sentence in place for the federal plea agreement, there are sentencing guidelines which say Longmire could spend up to 10 years in prison and pay a fine of up to $250,000. United States Attorney Kerry Harvey says this is an extremely important case for his office to pursue.
Kentuckians deserve an honest government. We can't expect to have a perfect government because it's populated by human beings, but we can and we must expect an honest government.
Now, Longmire's case will be sent over to the Federal Probation Office, where they will put together a pre-sentence report. He does remain out on bond until his August 18th sentencing. In Lexington, Hillary Thornton, WKYT.
Before pleading guilty today, Longmire, who was a licensed attorney, asked to have his name removed from Kentucky's East District Bar out of respect for the integrity of that list. A retired judge indicted in a disability fraud case headed to federal court in Lexington this afternoon. Judge David Doherty is accused of taking part in a scheme to fraudulently award millions of dollars in Social Security benefits. Eastern Kentucky attorney Eric C. Kahn and a former doctor are also accused in this case. Today, Doherty listened as a judge read the charges against him. Judge Doherty's next court appearance is May 18th, with a trial date set for June 7th. He is allowed, though, to stay in his wife's custody, but ordered him not to discuss the case with anyone without his lawyers present.
A semi carrying a load of brand new Mercedes SUVs turned over this morning. The crash closed Highway 36, 10 miles west of Cynthiana. It took hours to clear the crash because flatbed trucks had to be brought in to haul away the SUVs. Deputies say it's not a good highway for semis to travel.
This road's terrible for semis. It's just too curvy. Obviously, if you're going to operate on this road, you need to be extremely careful. But like I said, fortunately, he's okay.
The semi was headed to I-75 when it crashed. The driver wasn't hurt.
Family and friends saying goodbye today to a murdered teenager. Our county-by-county coverage begins in Mercer County. 17-year-old Tristan Cole was found shot to death in a rural part of the county last week. His funeral was held this afternoon at Alexander and Royalty Funeral Home in Harrodsburg. Another teenager is charged with robbery and murder in Cole's death. A Fleming County couple will spend 5 years in prison after entering an Alford plea in an abuse case. Natisha and Vernon Slaybach entered the plea in March, 3 days into their assault trial. They're accused of abusing their 19-month-old foster child in 2013. The Ledger Independent reports the pair is in the Mason County Jail.
New Yorkers are voting in their state's primary today. It is the first time in decades the state is playing an important role in the presidential nomination process. As Weijia Jiang shows us, the frontrunners are hoping hometown ties will help them win some much-needed victories.
Donald Trump started the day voting for himself on home turf in Manhattan.
I'm really honored, and putting in that vote today was really something terrific.
Polls show the Republican frontrunner has more than 50% of the vote, but he has to win big in the New York primary and in several other states to secure the nomination over rivals Ted Cruz and John Kasich before the convention.
This is Trump world. Donald's going to do fabulously.
For the first time in decades, New York is playing a key role in the nominating process. Winners in both parties will pick up delegates and the chance to slow their rivals' momentum. Hillary Clinton adopted New York as a home state when she served as senator for 2 terms. She's counting on a win here.
This has been a joy during the last 2 weeks to be here all over the state.
Terry Noren was a Clinton supporter until she got into the voting booth.
I like Hillary a lot, but I think I want more change than what she could provide.
Thank you very much.
Bernie Sanders hit the city streets this morning and greeted New Yorkers.
Despite the impediment of 3 million people not being able to participate, I think we're going to do just fine.
Sanders is referring to a state deadline of last October to register for either party in order to vote in the primary. Weijia Jiang, CBS News, New York.
Next up, Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island, where voters head to the polls next Tuesday.
The largest solar energy facility in the state of Kentucky is nearing completion. Coming up, we'll take you out to Mercer County.
You might think you can catch up on sleep, but that doesn't really work. The reason in better living.
Beautiful weather out there this afternoon. It's summer again. I'll show you how long that sticks around as we do track some thunderstorms into the region next.
WKYT.
Get WKYT news and weather updates on News Radio 630 WLAP. Now, your hour-by-hour forecast with Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey.
Warm temperatures again across the Bluegrass State, really most of the eastern half of the country basking in a little touch of summertime. And that's a good thing if you're sick and tired of the spring we've had so far. Up until this past week, it's been ugly, hasn't it? High pressure across the southeastern seaboard. It is anchored right on top of Hilton Head. Good place to be anchored, and we're getting in on that warmer flow coming in behind it. Colder air across the plain states. You get those two air masses bumping up against one another, showers and thunderstorms, but this is such a slow-moving system that it's going to take a little while still before we get in on any shower or thunderstorm action. Low 80s again this afternoon, 83, warm spot into central Kentucky for Frankfort. It's 85, Ashland, Prestonsburg, 84. Richmond into the Mount Sterling area, low 80s. I think we can hit 80 again tomorrow. We've got a shot on Thursday if you can get enough sunshine. Overall, it is about as warm as you're going to find it around here for the middle of April. Hour-by-hour forecast. Remember, this is a computer model that continues to get the latest and greatest data fed into it. 11 o'clock this evening, high clouds out there. Tomorrow morning, 50s to start. And just like today, a quick warm-up into the upper 70s by noon tomorrow. Low 80s will come your way tomorrow afternoon with a mix of sun and some clouds. That much of a chance some of you squeeze out a little isolated shower. If your yard, if you don't want to use the sprinklers just yet, and it's way too early for that, but you know what? Yards right now are trying to green up, so you may want to give them a little extra boost. We're going to try to throw a little rain on those later this week. Tomorrow there's a chance, better chance on Thursday afternoon with some scattered stuff. At no point do I expect a washout. Now the best chance may end up coming as we go into Thursday night into Friday morning, and you can see a little pipeline of moisture coming in from southwest to northeast early in the day on Friday with some showers and storms around. Turns a little cooler behind that system as we go toward the overnight hours on Friday. We may drop it into the 40s for at least one night, and then all of a sudden it's game on again for some milder air. Same computer model we looked at an hour ago that had a swath of 1-inch rains. I told you this is a computer model that gets new data into it, so it's constantly updating itself. It's lowered that total, and now it has a lot of the hit and miss type stuff coming up Thursday into Friday, and that is likely to be the case. Not everybody will see a lot of rain out of this. Some of us need it, most of us need it. A little drink of water is possible on a few yards Thursday into Friday. A break in the action this weekend. Temperatures are downright warm again. Sunday and Monday we may hit 80. I think next week into the following week, that would be Kentucky Derby week, coming up in 2 weeks. Likely to see a stormy-er pattern taking shape.
Do you have your Oaks fascinator or hat ready to go?
I don't know, but are you telling me I'm going to need some plastic to go over it?
It's 2 weeks away, but I think it's a stormier pattern taking shape for
and galoshes, maybe.
Maybe so.
How fashionable.
Yeah.
You've been through the mix out there with all that before,
all of it,
right?
yes. As long as I'm not wearing my winter coat, I'm good.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Thanks, Chris.
Getting an overall look at the Lexington and rush hour traffic this afternoon. There are some problems. Outbound Nicholasville Road at the circle. Just over that, it looks like the left lane is blocked for outbound Nicholasville Road because of that collision. It's impacting us all the way down the south line. There's also a collision on the north side. This is Newtown and Adcolor Drive. Police continue to work that injury collision as well. Drive times this afternoon to Versailles looks okay. No major problems past the airport as of right now, at least. And it looks like we're good to go into Scott County on 75. Now back in the studio.
Kentucky's largest solar energy facility is nearly ready to go. We take a peek in it coming up.
His family sharing their memories of a Lexington doctor hit and killed while riding his bicycle last weekend. How he's being remembered today by his son on WKYT News at 5:30.
When big news.
People in Houston continue to deal with deadly flooding.
Waters began rising after an estimated 1.5 feet of rain fell yesterday. Rescuers have been working around the clock to save people trapped in floodwaters. 5 people have died, including a woman whose car filled with water while she was in it.
Okay, cancer, this heart problem, all that I understand. But this, driving to high water in the middle of the city and there's nothing that could be done, it's a terrible loss.
400 people have been forced from their homes because of the flooding. The Red Cross has opened shelters to help them. The death toll in Ecuador has reached 400, and the number is expected to continue rising. A powerful earthquake hit the country's Pacific coast last weekend. Rescuers from all over the world have come to help, and they have pulled a few survivors from the rubble. The Red Cross says as many as 5,000 people might need temporary shelter because their homes were destroyed. Kentucky's largest solar energy facility is getting closer to completion.
And we had a chance to check out the project in Mercer County earlier today. Our Mike Linden shows us how the facility will power homes.
In just a few months, LG&E and KU crews are almost finished on what will be the largest solar energy producing facility in the state at the E.W. Brown Generating Station in Mercer County.
It's a real simple technology, actually. It's not hard to design and build. I mean, basically these panels here do all the work.
Despite still being months away from completion, the panels that are up are producing energy.
We have nominally about 2 megawatts available to go, and it depends on how much sun we have, what we'll actually be producing on a day in and day out basis.
When complete, the facility will provide 19,000 megawatt hours of power. That's enough to provide energy to 1,500 homes using 1,000 megawatt hours per month. So far, crews have installed more than 13,000 panels across the 50-acre site, with a goal of more than 44,000 when the project is finished. But what it all comes down to with solar energy is one thing: the sun.
The sun's there, and to be able to take and capture that resource and use it's a good thing.
While solar energy is still taking baby steps in the bluegrass, LG&E and KU officials say they're already discussing how to expand the technology to the rooftops of city buildings and shopping malls statewide.
All that rooftop is real estate available to put solar on without having to go out and take a field up.
The facility is scheduled to be fully operational by June 1st. In Mercer County, Mike Linden, WKYT.
And thanks to tax credits and competitive bidding for construction on the site, LG&E and KU leaders say the project will come in below the original $36 million budget. Baptist Health Lexington is helping pay tribute to organ donors. The Kentucky Organ Donor Affiliate's quilt was on display at the hospital on Nicholasville Road. The quilt honors those who have helped others through organ and tissue donation.
And I think basically people are good people here in Kentucky. We share. And isn't that really what organ donation is? Making that decision to share something with someone else.
If you'd like to take a look at it, the display is open from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. tomorrow near the hospital's main cafeteria. There's also someone on hand to answer questions and help you sign up for the Kentucky Organ Donor Registry. He once served as director of one of Kentucky's most popular music events. Today, he pled guilty in a theft case. We have reaction to that coming up on WKYT News at 5:30.
Why catching up on sleep doesn't work and how nature can help extend your life. The story's next in Better Living.
-polostudies.com.
It is time now for Better Living, health, education, and consumer news that impacts your life. We need a good night's sleep to be at our best, but for many of us, that's easier said than done. People try to make up for lost time by sleeping in later on the weekends, but sleep experts say that's not likely to help in the long run. Just one night of sleep deprivation can cause a lack of alertness or impaired memory. The best thing you can do is to maintain a schedule and make sleep a daily priority.
Our bodies like consistency, so it's best to keep the same sleep time, wake time as much as you can. Now, there probably will be some variations on, typical work days versus days that you have off, but as much as possible, keeping that as consistent as possible.
Long-term sleep deprivation is associated with high blood pressure, diabetes, heart attack, and stroke. If you want to extend your life, adding a little bit of green can help. As Jeremy Roth shows us, a new study suggests women who live closer to nature might live longer.
Living closer to nature could help women live longer. A study published in the journal Environmental Health Perspectives suggests a link between the amount of vegetation around homes and significantly lower mortality rates among women. The study was conducted by researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Researchers looked at data from more than 100,000 women in the U.S. over an 8-year period. They compared the number of deaths in that group to satellite imagery, analyzing the different levels of vegetation nationwide. Then, they also accounted for risk factors such as age, ethnicity, and tobacco use. They found that for lush areas with a lot of greenery, women had a 12% lower mortality rate than in areas with the least amount of vegetation. The study's authors say there could be several reasons for that: less air pollution and possibly higher physical activity. Other similar studies have suggested the same thing, but many of those studies are smaller and some of the findings have been contradictory. For Health Minute, I'm Jeremy Roth.
Visa is planning to make its new chip cards even more efficient. The company says its quick chip will let customers dip and remove cards in 2 seconds or less. The card can then be removed from the terminal while the rest of the transaction continues. Now, here's what's coming up for you at 5:30.
A well-known Lexington cardiologist's son remembers his father just days after he was killed while riding his bike.
We continue to track the latest out of Frankfurt, where the governor has announced an investigation into what he calls corruption from the Beshear administration.
He admitted to stealing thousands of dollars from several organizations, but the former director of the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame may be facing lesser charges.
This is WKYT News at 5:30.
Governor Matt Bevin announcing today he is launching a special investigation into allegations of corruption under former Governor Steve Beshear's administration.
Governor Bevin made the accusations during a news conference this morning. The governor claims the Beshear administration forced state workers to make political contributions to Democratic candidates, issued no-bid contracts to benefit friends, and improperly awarded benefits to volunteer firefighters. The former governor called the investigation a, quote, pathetic spectacle. We'll have team coverage on this political tug-of-war between the two administrations ahead for you on WKYT News at 6. Some new information tonight about a 2-year-old found dead in the back of an SUV at a Louisville school. An autopsy shows the boy died of hypothermia. A staff member at Guttermuth Elementary School noticed that Levante Swain was in an SUV in the carpool lane yesterday. Police say he'd been in the vehicle for 4 hours and a daycare employee was driving. He was given CPR but died at the scene. The National Weather Service says that the temperature at the time was 83 degrees. So far, no charges have been filed. And police in Louisville are searching for the driver of a car involved in a deadly crash. It happened early this morning. Police say the car hit a curb, telephone pole, and fire hydrant. Police say 3 passengers inside the car were taken to the hospital. One of them died. Police say the driver of the car left the scene. The identity of the victim has not yet been released.
A man who served as the director of one of Kentucky's most popular music attractions went before a judge earlier today. Robert Lawson admitted to stealing money during his time as the head of the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame. But it appears he will not be spending any more time in jail. WKYT's Mark Barber is in Rockcastle County with more.
Robert Lawson will be out of jail and on probation in 4 months because he is getting credit for time served. Since this is the first time that he has pleaded guilty to serious criminal charges, the Commonwealth's attorney has agreed to let him start a program that gives him a shot at getting his charges dropped and avoiding jail time. If Lawson can meet the terms of his 3-year diversion, his felony theft charges will be wiped off his record. If that's going to happen, he has to pay back nearly $30,000 to the organizations that he stole from. As the former director of the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame, Lawson was supposed to use his position to promote music. Instead, he padded his own pockets by stealing from 3 organizations in Rockcastle County. He was caught last year, siphoning money away from the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame, as well as the Cystic Fibrosis Organization and the Rockcastle County Tourism Task Force. Bentley Cromer, a board member with the historic and well-known Music Hall of Fame, says Lawson's sentence does not seem like much. He thinks there was only so much the courts could do.
It bothers me, and even though I think, if he does restitution and does his time, I think that's as much as we could have expected.
While Lawson will be here in the Rockcastle County Detention Center the next 4 months, he will be allowed to leave the jail to work at a factory in Berea. The money he makes will go back to the organizations that he stole from. In Mount Vernon, Mark Barber, WKYT.
If Lawson does not complete his diversion requirements successfully, he'll have to spend 5 years in jail on his charges of theft by deception. He was an experienced cyclist out for a ride when he was hit and killed on Lexington Road in Bourbon County. Dr. David Cassidy, a Lexington cardiologist, died in that crash. State police say it appears to be a tragic accident. Monique Blair talked to Cassidy's son about how he's remembering his father.
Dr. David Cassidy opened a private practice here on Harrodsburg Road in 2014 while also continuing to work as a cardiologist at St. Joe Hospital. Tonight I spoke with his son, who tells me his father loved saving other people's lives.
There's a mechanic that his life he saved, who was our mechanic, who was really, really grateful to my father.
Zachary Cassidy tells me his father, Dr. David Cassidy, moved to Lexington in 1990 after he served in the Army, retiring as a captain. He raised 3 children while quickly becoming a pillar in the community, known for his loyalty and dedication to his patients.
He had patients who couldn't afford his services, and he said, it's okay, whatever you can pay me. And so he had patients who would pay him $1 a month because that was about all they could spare, and he was okay with that.
Dr. Cassidy died Sunday after he was hit by a car while riding his bike.
He loved being outdoors on it and just on the roads, biking. He was training for a 100-mile bike race down in Tennessee next month. How many people in their 60s can do that? He'd tell you that he died doing something he loved.
Last May, Dr. Cassidy's fellow cyclist and friend Mark Hinkle died after he was hit while biking in the Horsey 100. Hinkle's family says Dr. Cassidy was instrumental in getting a memorial set up for him.
What I hope comes of this is public awareness that bikers need their share of the road too.
Dr. David Cassidy's funeral will be held on Friday morning at 11 o'clock at Christ Church Cathedral. In Lexington, Monique Blair, WKYT.
State police say it is too early to say whether or not the driver who hit Dr. Cassidy will face charges.
A woman who was critically injured after police say she was beaten has died. Her fiance's daughter is now charged with manslaughter. Our county-by-county coverage begins in Knox County. The charges are from a fight last Sunday. Police say Haley Bond beat her father's fiancee, Sue Sizemore. She ended up in the hospital with critical injuries. Bond's charges were upgraded to manslaughter after Sizemore died. This morning, Bond told the judge she hit Sizemore out of self-defense. Bond also faces a trespassing charge because police say she had already been ordered not to be at her father's house. The grand jury will hear the case on May 27th. In Franklin County, a judge has denied a woman's request for a new trial or early release from prison. Mona Lisa Maupin is serving a 20-year sentence for the accidental shooting of Patricia Tate. Maupin admitted to firing shots while threatening to kill a man in 2012, and one of those shots entered Tate's home, hitting her. Maupin's attorneys argued she is in poor health and has children at home who need her. The State Journal reports Maupin is eligible for parole in September. In Warren County, 3 parents face charges after police say they allowed their children to fight and didn't try to stop it. Deputies were called to a park in February for a fight between 2 female high school students, but no arrests were made. Police say video later showed Glenn and Kim Budd along with Sharon Grimes at the park, but not stopping the fight. Police say Glenn can be heard encouraging the girls to fight. The 3 parents are out of jail on bonds.
It's another beautiful day here in the Bluegrass with warm temperatures and blue skies, but we could see maybe some changes the next couple of days. Let's check in now with WKYT's chief meteorologist, Chris Bailey. Hey, Chris.
Hey, guys. Very nice weather, as you mentioned, for the past several days. We are doing a whole lot right here in the Bluegrass State, huh? Beautiful skies out there, similar to June, though, with the temperatures. Here's a live look into Lexington. A little more in the way of some clouds today compared to yesterday, but look at that thermometer. 82 degrees, humidity bone dry again, 25%. Not quite the desert, but boy, it kind of appears that way, with temperatures low 80s, low humidity levels across the entire area. Day 2 in a row with those thermometers topping out at 80 degrees or better. A little more in the way of some high clouds out there this afternoon should set us up for, in some cases, a fiery sunset, though off to our west, area of low pressure in the upper levels. That still has the cold air behind it, the warm air out ahead of it, but now we're starting to lose a little bit of that temperature gradient, so the showers and thunderstorms out ahead of that, not as strong as what we were talking about over the past couple of days. Speaking of talking about, when I come back in a few minutes, we'll talk about the summer temperatures that roll on and the storm chance that will increase with a bigger change lurking for next week. Guys, 7-day forecast coming your way in less than 10 minutes.
Chris, thank you. The Kentucky Lottery is now selling several products online. Eligible players who register for an online account will be able to purchase Powerball, Mega Millions, and Kentucky Cash Ball draw games at KentuckyLottery.com. At least 5 instant play scratch-off games ranging from 50 cents to $3 are also available. Kentucky is the 3rd state to offer lottery sales online, joining Michigan and Georgia. We have more details for you on WKYT.com.
You still have time to nominate a teacher and win a gift card for that teacher and yourself if they're selected. Our good question tonight is from a viewer who says they're having trouble finding where to submit that nomination. Kathy's asking, I'm having problems with submitting my nomination. Can you help out? Okay, pretty simple, Kathy. You can go to our website, WKYT.com, and click on the contest section, or you can go to WKYT.com/teacher #/ and there you can nominate your Teacher of the Year. If they're selected, they win a $1,000 Visa gift card, and you win a $500 Visa gift card. You can nominate right up to Monday, May 2nd at 8 a.m. The winner will be announced on May 16th. This is sponsored by Morehead State University. To submit a good question, send an email to goodquestion@WKYT.com.
Louisville police have released their traffic and security plans for Thunder over Louisville this weekend. The story in about 5 minutes.
I'm Bill Bryant. It's a closely watched presidential primary day in New York. Strong allegations in Frankfort from one administration about another. And Kentucky Republicans ramp up their efforts for the fall. The bottom line is ahead.
All eyes on New York tonight as we wait for the results from their presidential primary.
And more on the strong allegations out of Frankfort from the Bevin administration. Bill Bryant has the bottom line.
Good evening. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are both hoping for wins when the results roll in tonight from the New York presidential primary. Trump is hoping that a convincing victory could translate into momentum that might help him get enough support to go to the Republican convention with a first ballot nomination. And Hillary Clinton, who leads the New York polls among Democrats, is hoping that a strong victory in the Empire State for her could lead for more calls for Bernie Sanders to drop out. Kentucky U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell has declared his neutrality in the Republican race for president, but it sounds as though he is signaling opposition to Donald Trump as the nominee. The Senate Majority Leader said in a TV interview here in Kentucky that he is, quote, increasingly optimistic that there will be a second ballot at the Republican National Convention. McConnell says he hopes to be a delegate to the convention and points out that he would be free to do what he wants on a second ballot. In Frankfort today, Governor Matt Bevin said he is changing the culture in the state capitol. In a news conference late this morning, Bevin read a lengthy statement. He made several allegations of corruption and greed in the prior administration of Governor Steve Beshear. Bevin alleged state employees were pressured to give political contributions. He also questioned some actions taken in the last days of the Beshear administration. Bevin says he is hiring a private law firm to more fully investigate. We have more coverage of the allegations and responses coming up later on WKYT News. The Republican Party of Kentucky staffing up with the approaching election season, including a battle for control of the state house. The state GOP has added Trey Watson as communications director. He ran Ryan Quarles' successful campaign for Ag Commissioner last year, and Josh Thomas will be the RPK's political director. Bill Bryant, WKYT.
Police in Louisville unveiling their plans for the roads and the river for Thunder over Louisville this weekend.
And with construction underway and several ramp closures, police think they have a way to alleviate the headache that will keep things flowing as much as possible. But the roads aren't the only concern. This year, 24 boats from multiple agencies will be on the Ohio River. And with good weather expected, Chris Bailey, police say the crowd should be large and they do not want a repeat of last year's deadly boat accident.
I think the 4th of July incident caused everybody a grave concern, and we just wanted to ensure that we reached out and asked for every single piece of help that we could get.
More than 1,200 officers from multiple agencies will be on the Kentucky side of the river. Louisville police will also have special units to respond to disturbances caused by large groups.
Now, your hour-by-hour forecast with Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey.
Some high clouds today, but overall it's very similar looking and feeling to what we had yesterday. Another day in the 80s here across Kentucky. And you could see some of those high clouds showing up on those beautiful Kentucky weather cams from the western parts of the region all the way toward the Virginia border counties. High clouds and temperatures into the low 80s this afternoon. A few spots now dropping into the upper 70s, and we get into the evening, those numbers will slowly drop through the 70s, and by the time we hit 11, it's still greater than 65 degrees into many areas. Another warm evening with a partly cloudy sky. Defender Radar Network, nothing going on. High clouds across the western parts of the area with showers and thunderstorms trying to fire back up western Tennessee toward parts of Texas, Louisiana, right along the Mississippi Valley. Most of that, though, is slow to press toward the east. So tomorrow, chance for a shower or thunderstorm. Most areas will stay dry. Most areas stay dry until the afternoon on Thursday, and it's scattered stuff Thursday into the first half of Friday on your 3-day threat track as temperatures start to come down a little bit closer to normal by that time. Normal, something we haven't seen a whole lot of around here. We went from temperatures in the 20s with snowflakes to all of a sudden summertime in a week. Tomorrow, noontime, Lexington, 76 degrees. May hit 80 or 81 again tomorrow afternoon with a mainly dry sky. Now, winds are going to begin to gust up a little bit as we go through tomorrow night. Watch those winds that may crank around 30 miles per hour or greater at times on Thursday, with temperatures still into the 70s that will try to come back a little bit second half of the day with a passing shower or thunderstorm. Notice this model says 1/10 of an inch as we go to the afternoon on Thursday. That number begins to rise a little bit as we go through Thursday night into Friday morning with some rounds of showers and thunderstorms that will be noted as we go toward your Friday. Overall, though, it's a pattern that we need to get a little rain from, and eventually that's going to happen. I think next week is a pattern that will try to produce more in the way of some showers and thunderstorms as we keep the warm conditions, but a stormier setup now, Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley, likely next week. Short term, still summertime out there. At least the temperatures think so. 80 tomorrow, mid to upper 70s for a while on Thursday, low 70s Friday, Saturday looking good, Sunday near 80. We're into the low 80s again by Monday with a shower or thunderstorm as those storm chances next week will begin to ramp up somewhat.
All right, we're going to need that rain. We just don't want a whole big bunch of it.
Don't want it all at once, but yeah, we could use a little April shower or two.
All right, thanks, Chris.
So we're looking at a couple of collisions. One is outbound Nicholasville Road at Circle with the 2 lanes blocked there. It's a non-injury crash, turns out, so that's better news. Newtown Pike at the Circle, still clearing one on that scene as well. Overall, it looks like traffic flow is okay except for those spots, and right now into Nicholasville, it's 12 to 15 minutes. No major issues into Versailles on US 60. Now back to the studio.
Up next, we'll hear from the quarterback Mark Stoops named as his starter.
Drew Barker still has plenty to prove, but he comes out of the spring on top. As for Saturday's game, there are things he's happy with and then a throw he was unhappy with. He talks about both next in sports.
But it's the law. Get WKYT news and weather updates on 104.5 The Cat.
Mark Stoops naming Drew Barker his starting quarterback after his Saturday spring game, and Barker has to feel good about the way he's performed. The redshirt sophomore threw a couple of touchdown passes, one to C.J. Conrad and the other this 64-yard strike that was on the money to Ryan Timmons. Timmons is going into his senior year and looking for much better things this fall.
I like Timmons a lot because, last year, he kind of beat himself up a lot over the offseason, everything about his season last year. So I feel like his confidence is at an all-time high right now. So that was good to see him have a big, explosive play like that. But, obviously CJ, like I've been saying all spring, he's been a great target in the red zone for us. So, and it's going to continue to be like that. I mean, he's just a beast. So it's awesome to throw to guys like that.
Barker threw an interception. This pass to the near sidelines intended for Jabari Greenwood was picked off by Jared Tucker. Barker just described it as a bad throw.
That was a bad throw. It was just a bad read. Right when I threw it, I knew it was probably going to get intercepted. So I definitely would like to have that one back. There's probably a couple of throws I'd like to have back. But, you know, Coach Henshaw, Coach Grant, their motto is a white piece of paper mentality. You just got to flip the page, keep going. I mean, I was mad at myself for doing it because right when I threw it, I knew it was going to be a bad pass. But, you know, I just flipped the page and just I think the 2-minute drill or whatever was the next drive. So I just tried to build off that, and we ended on a touchdown, so that was good.
LSU guard Antonio Blakeney is not going into the NBA draft. He will return for his sophomore season in Baton Rouge. Blakeney was named to the All-SEC freshman team. He started 24 games for the Tigers last season, averaging about 12.5 points and 3.5 rebounds. The Phoenix Suns have finalized a multi-year deal to make Earl Watson their head coach. Watson took over for Jeff Hornacek during the 2016 season, going 9-24. Watson will be coaching 4 former Wildcats: Devin Booker, Eric Bledsoe, Archie Goodwin, and Brandon Knight. NBA playoffs last night. Steph Curry not able to go for the Golden State Warriors after tweaking his ankle in Game 1. As it turned out, they didn't need him against Houston. Klay Thompson spins into the lane, up and under. Golden State up 6 in the third. And then in the fourth, Andre Iguodala in transition. The Warriors go up 2-0, winning it 115-106. The latest on Steph Curry is that he will undergo an MRI on that ankle. In the next half hour, Cal makes an offer. Stay with us. We'll continue after the break.
For all